This time, I'm going to take some Christmas lights I got at Goodwill for a couple bucks. They're pretty messed up, I guess. They don't work. You plug them in, they don't light up. They have some broken pieces. I didn't buy them because I wanted them to light up from the incandescent bulbs they come with. I wanted them to, as you can see, it's just a standard Christmas light. See if I can get one off. I wanted them to light up using LED. So I'm just going to remove all the wire and probably remove the sockets. Might keep them. I haven't decided yet once I open them all up. And change them to, instead of a warm white Christmas light, I'm going to change them to a flicker orange LED to imitate like these would be an old 1800s candle lit street light. Also, I'm going to get rid of this big heavy green wire and I'm going to replace it with LED wire, which is much thinner. Which means if you use this on a display for a Christmas village or take the wreaths off and make them for a Halloween village or even a autumn village, you would have an easier time setting them up because this wire being heavy, they don't tend to want to stand very well because the wire is pre-formed. They did come with the instructions, which sounds funny for Christmas lights, but it's because they have a base that will actually keep the wires separated so you can lay them flat like that. There's supposed to be double back tape on them. They don't stick, but a dab of hot glue will work fine once they're done. Also, another thing I liked about these Christmas lights, another reason I bought them, is if you notice, there's two holes right here. So if you were to mount this to a foam base using a long brad nail as an anchor, or even a wood base, and you can use a shorter nail, or a very small finishing screw, you could actually screw these into your village without having them tip over. Because that's the problem with a lot of Limax lights is they tip over and they want you to use a sticky tack on the bottom and then stick them to your base. If your base is mostly a grass type or moss type, it doesn't stick worth a damn. So, let me show you how to do this, and let me show you the light I want to put inside. Here it is in a LED tester. You can see it lights up. I'm going to turn off some of these lights so you can try and see the flicker. And you can see I'll cover the red light from the tester. You see how the light is flickering? It is called a candle light. It's an orange. You can get them in yellow and red and white. I like the deep orange myself. Light's back on. You can still see the flicker. So I'm going to take those and stick them inside these. And I know on the camera it gives it a kind of a reddish glow. It's actually very deep orange. I might actually try getting a yellow LED out and seeing if that will change, since these lenses are yellow opaque. They're not clear opaque. So we can try a yellow flicker. I should have one. I do. So, let's turn off the light again there. I'm going to put them side by side and I'm going to pull the one out. This way you can see the difference in color. Alright, so I'll bend it out of the way. This one here is the orange, this one's the yellow, which on my camera viewfinder almost looks like a white. So I'm going to pull the orange out. And then I'm going to stick the lens over it. Focus! There we go. Actually, I might do the yellow. It does look a lot better, not only on the camera, looks a lot better in the actual person. So yeah, I'm going to change it from candle orange to flicker yellow. Light. Light. So, instead of doing the original, I've already changed my mind, so we're going to change all of these to the flicker yellow. So that way it looks better in this yellow opaque lens and gives it that ancient, old-timey, 200-year-old lantern look from the old streets. So, I'm going to get some stuff cleaned up here, and we're going to take one apart. I'm going to show you how to do it with the first one, and then I'll do the rest later, and then come back when they're done, so you don't have to watch me do the same process, I don't know, 10 times. But these wreaths just clip on. Since these lights are old and used, some of the wreaths, the clips are broke. They make this wonderful thing called hot glue or super glue to fix it if you want to use them for a Christmas town. If you want to use them for a spooky town, they look pretty good without the wreath. They already have some patinaing. It might be hard to see in this light, but they're kind of a metallic bronze look with black. Kind of makes it look like it's been weathered. For being cheap, probably Chinese-made Christmas lights, they don't look too bad. I'm going to clean up some of the castings, like right here. There's a piece of plastic, you can see it sticking off. Just use an X-Acto knife or a razor knife and cut them off. They don't do a really good job at cleaning them up, but people normally don't buy them for really good displays. They just buy them to make them look good in the background. Try and make it look. You can see the light, the casting maybe, where it's not the greatest. But you can kind of see in the light, you can see the bronze appearance. These are just plastic. So they did a decent job of trying to make it look like an old-timey lantern light. So I'm going to clean up some of this stuff so I don't lose any of the parts, like the bases. I don't need the instructions. I know how a base pops in. It's kind of weird to have an open box like this with these still inside. It's very, and these, especially the caps. Not something you're normally going to get from a Goodwill. I did not buy these recently. I've had these sitting on my shelf for probably a year and a half or so. Probably got them at Christmas before last. So I figured it's probably time to make them work. I'm going to use them for my Halloween town, so I'm going to get rid of all the wreaths. But you can use them for both. Heck, you can use them for Halloween town, and if you have a Christmas town, just pop the wreaths on. If you have to glue them on, use hot glue, because you can crack it off and then put a dab to put it back on when your seasons change. Or you might find another way to hang them, maybe apply a little string and hang them off one of the arms, kind of like they would actually do in real life. But anyhow, let me move some of this stuff around, get the LEDs out, and I'll show you how I start this process. Alright, I have made some room. I got the LEDs here, the flicker yellows. These lights are 16 inches apart from center to center. I'm not going to go that same length. I got my LED wire standing by. I got some wire snips or flush cutters. My soldering iron's over here. It's now on. So how I'm going to start is some of the caps have already fallen off inside that white box that was here, a white styrofoam. I'm going to first work off the top. I don't know if they're supposed to all come apart. I think the reason they do is some of these have a crack in them where the seam has separated. I'll probably put a dab of glue on them. Not hot glue, but Gorilla Glue. Next I'm going to pull where the base meets the top. Just wiggle it off to expose the green wire. And to give it more slack, I'm going to pull out the wire loop so I can pull more in. And then I'm going to cut it. Of course, if you have a set like this, make sure it's unplugged. I know these don't work, but yeah. and I can pull these out. If you can see, you have a little bar here that separates the wire coming up and the wire going out. What I'm going to do is, because these are all going to be linked together, and I'm going to do parallel LEDs, I'm going to have one set of 2 wires going up and one set of 2 wires going out. It's not going to be wired the same way as the factory Christmas lights. And Christmas lights out. There's the socket inside, which does not appear to come out. Nope. This is the actual socket itself. It's not like a normal socket inside. So by leaving the extra, the socket is still in there, but now the wire, the part that actually touches here, has come off. So if I try and put an LED in here, they just fall all the way to the bottom. So I can use the factory socket, take the 2 wires, bend them so you can get rid of the glass bulb, then feed your LED in here. Because these are smaller LEDs, they're not as fat, they'll actually recess down inside as well, not what I want. So I'm going to push them up so they stick out, and then fold them over. Now, you can see one's longer than the other on the wire. The long one is positive, the short one is negative. LEDs don't work if you reverse the polarity. They don't turn on. So I am going to mark them by putting a dab of black on the one side of the socket. Hopefully you can see it. And that's the reason I'm marking it, is I'm going to take these snips and I'm going to make these wires approximately the same length. Really need sharper ones. There we go. Let me get a different set that are sharper. There we go. Now if I was using the orange ones actually rest on top of this green socket and they wouldn't fall in. But the reason I want to use it is so I can slide this back in once I see the line right there. Really need to that wasn't supposed to happen. And then, so it kind of looked like that. And I know you're thinking, well, how are you going to give it power? Well, I'm going to pull the socket back out. I just wanted you to see how it fits. Let's see if I can get these to slide back in to their respective locations. I don't know if you can hear all the background noise. We're having a pretty good thunderstorm right now. Alright, so those aren't going to fit back into where I need them. So what I'm going to do is, these are 1-inch squares. I'm going to make these probably 10 inches apart. So with the shaft is 3. So I'm going to make 16 inches of wire, since it has to go up a 3-inch shaft, across 16 inches and up another 3-inch shaft. feed the wires through. I got the reds on one side, the blacks on the other. What I mean by is they're the same. So that way I can solder them in parallel, which means I'm going to solder the two blacks to one side of the light, two reds to the other. So each light gets equal power. If they're in series, you need to push more power through them, and the farther down the light string you go, the dimmer the lights will get. If you ever buy rope lights or strip lights, the LEDs that come in a circle on a little disc, if you ever read the instructions, they'll tell you that you shouldn't go above a certain distance. Generally it's 16 feet, and that's because you start degrading the light quality. On a lot of lights, especially white ones, you can notice real fast that the farther the lights go when they're wired in series, the dimmer they get, even in that 16-foot run. Alright, so I got the blacks and the reds now stripped. And I'm going to twist the reds together. I'm going to twist the blacks together. And I listen to everything outside getting blown around from the nice storm. Alright, apparently I'm going to have to put a dab of solder on them as well, because even though I'm twisting them, I don't have a lot of wire and they're separating. So, soldering iron. Some solder. There we go. So that'll keep them together. Let me pull out some of the excess. So, feed this through. Now, because these still fit tight on the shaft, I'm not going to solder them, or excuse me, glue them here. Now I'm going to solder the wires. Now that they're the same length, I don't know which is negative, which is positive, which is why I marked one side with black Sharpie or black marker, so I can solder these wires on and then push it back into its socket. So put a little solder on these connector, on the LED ends for the connection. So now match up the colors. And that's a warning from the weather service if you heard the vibration telling me that we're under a severe thunderstorm, which I could tell prior since I was outside, and well, when the sky is dark and it's lightning and thundering, it's pretty obvious. A little slow. And now I'm going to pull the wires down inside. So just slowly work it in. I think they're twisted. Yeah, they're twisted. There we go. Just a hair too much thickness with the solder. And trim off the extra solder. Push the socket in. that. And now I'm going to pull the wires back again. Yeah, you know what? This isn't going to work right. I know why it's getting bound up. I'll fix it on the next set. But the problem is with the red and white, red and black going down one side and the other red and black going down the other, they're crossing at the top where that divider is. So can't do that. You need to have both reds going down one side and both blacks going down the other. Should have thought of that beforehand, but we all make mistakes. And apparently, yep, another notification telling me that it's thunder and lightning outside. And if you're thinking I could turn those notifications off, it's not the notification that you think. It's a notification of like the neighborhood saying there's a storm, watch your pets. It's a neighborhood app. Some people may have it. It's called Nextdoor. Apparently the last storm we had the other day, some pets got out and people are concerned it's going to happen again. Since we, in the last 4 days, we've had 3 large monsoon storms here in the valley. So. But I know about turning off all the other alerts. I just have an app that is for the neighborhood. There we go. That's better. It's a driving rain too. It's beating on the window that's to my left. And that window is really hard to get wet. It's high and underneath. Alright. So on the future ones, after this one, I will make a revision to it so it's not so hard to do. I'm going to turn on a power supply just so you can see. Set the power. And strip a little bit off of the black and a little bit off the red. It doesn't matter which one because they're both soldered together as far as each color. Red and black. And we'll stick the top on. And we'll stick like so. Now these LEDs run at between 2.2 and 3 volts. So I have it set at 3 volts to make it as bright as possible, because of the opaque lens. So let's see if we can get it up here. And you can see it's on. The glare is killing it. So anyhow, that's how I'm going to do the first one. I'm going to start doing the rest, and just before I'm done I'll start it back up so you don't have to watch the long process of all these. Alright, so we'll be back if we don't lose power. Alright. We're back for the final connection. I found a way to keep the wires together. So the first ones are all loose, which it's fine. Once they're tucked underneath the mats, it's okay. It's also the next day. The storm that I was having last night caused power to flicker, and it wasn't worth trying to do any of this with an unreliable city power at the moment. How I figured it out, or what I figured out, was if I remove this divider piece I was telling you about that split the wires, it actually works pretty good. So I just use a pair of small cutters and get it out. You can probably use, if you can find these lights, because I don't even know what they are since there was no box. If you use maybe an X-Acto knife, or just try and break it out with a screwdriver. And then feed your wires through. There's one. There's two. Put on the top decorative piece. Don't make the mistake I did on one of these where I forgot and I had to desolder it and do it again. But, you know, just desolder it. It's not the end. Soldering iron. Some more. If in the future the ones that are split get in my way when I set up these on the village, I'll desolder and just run a new piece of the red and black wire without them being split. But since I run a lot of the moss mats and other mats, I don't see it being an issue. And then I already marked this one in advance. I got the black on this side, which I know is going to go here. But I need to tin it. So. Alright, these should be stuck together. I'm just going to remove a piece of the solder so there's no point. Now the last one I just ran one wire up, which is why I left this one like this so you could see. It is there's no reason, there's no more light. And if I ever find another set and I want to make it longer, I can just pull this light fixture out and then resolder it with a new wire. So, push it in, fold the wires flat so they're up against the housing, and then push that in. I'm also going to make it run on a Max power supply, which is 4.5 volts approximately. But in the meantime, I'll just do this with a standard power supply. And hopefully you can see them flicker. So they're all on. Just turned off the extra light. So to make it run on a Max barrel power supply, not one of the 3 volts, I'm going to have it run on the 4.5. Reason being is I have a lot of the 3 head connectors that I use for boxes like this. So I have more of those than I have the 3 volt 4 head connectors. I could run on 3 volts. This only draws 2.5 volts and it draws 15 milliamps, which is nothing. So, but since I have more of these, I'm going to run it on this. And what you're going to need is a barrel, female, and I'm using a 150 ohm resistor, which is kind of hard to see. On these, there's 3 pins. This pin right here is the center, which is generally hot. On the Max it is. These 2 pins are connected to each other inside, and that's the negative, which is the bottom piece right in here. So as long as I solder this to one of these 2 outers, which I'm just going to feed the wire through the hole in the center, like so, and then I'm just going to wrap it and solder it. The reason I'm going to use both of them is just so I have a better contact for the negative, and I can keep the resistor close to this so I don't have it just in the middle of the wire. Normally I would pre-tin these, but since I wanted to use the hole in the center, I did not. Because in a lot of cases when you pre-tin them, that hole in the center gets filled with solder. And then, there you go. This extra piece of wire that's hanging off right here, I'm just going to snip. This. Out of the way. So now it's nice and clean. Grabbing the other end of these lights, which has the 2 leads I left out. So I'm using this on the ground, the resistor, instead of the hot. And low voltage like this generally doesn't matter. Most high voltage components, it varies depending on what it's doing. The reason I'm choosing the ground is because I can wrap the resistor through 2 different points in case something happens. So, again, I would normally pre-tin these, but since I want to feed it through the hole, I don't want to pre-tin it. But what I am going to do is I'm going to get a piece of heat shrink if I have some in that size. And slide it over. I don't want at least the hot pin exposed. The negative pin, not so much of an issue. You can also use liquid electrical tape, which I'm still probably going to put on here, since the whole back side of this is exposed. And the whole point is to make it safe, even though it's low power. Because even low power, if there's a good enough short, it still cause a problem. So the wire is now soldered to this outer one, or the back one, I guess I would say. And now I'm going to feed the negative. Because the negative will reach the entire way, I'm actually going to trim it back for the distance of the resistor, so that way my wires are about the same length. And I'm not pre-tinning this one either because I'm going to wire wrap, which if your wire is tinned with solder, you can't wire wrap because it's too brittle. It's too solid, too hard. So what I've done is I've wrapped the wire around it and then folded the lead back over. I'm going to solder it and then cut the extra piece off. It makes it for a stronger bond when you do a wire wrap. You're less likely to break it from moving it. Not saying that you're going to move it a lot, but if you set up and tear down your display, you're going to move this probably more often than I will. My display rarely gets moved. unless I move houses or have to tear up my carpet for some reason, it doesn't go anywhere. Cut off that piece. So, like so. Get that out of the way. Keep going. Now it's nice and rigid. We can plug it in. So again, this is a 4.5 volt Limax adapter. Plugging it in. So I'm not going to use a power supply. Just going to slide these over here, so hopefully they're all in frame. And hopefully you can see them all flicker. Let's turn off a little bit more light. Grab the last light. There we go. It's like twinkling little stars. I have gone through and cleaned up some of these tops to get rid of the overcastings. So push them on, and now you have that twinkling, old-timey, trying to shield some of the light from the window, lantern look. If I remember right, these were like $2 for the string at Goodwill. I think like $1.99 or something. Of course, I had a 20% off coupon, and I bought a lot of stuff, so made it like $1.80. But what I have now, and I know they're a little tall compared to the buildings, especially the newer buildings seem to be getting smaller. If I put these against the back of the backdrop, they'll be tall enough that you can see them over things like bushes or gravestones. There we go. That one wasn't on all the way. And it'll just give it a nice ambiance. Since again, I'm using these for the Halloween village, I'm not using these for a Christmas village, so I don't need the wreath. I am going to put the wires in their respective grooves and turn the light back on. And I am going to glue in the flat discs. That way these wires stay evenly separated. So I am going to do that before I put them in my display. Probably won't be putting them in my display anytime soon. Probably not for another month or so. Until I have all the new pieces I want and I redo it. The display I use mostly foam or solid wood bases, so I'll either use the sticky tack or I will drive a couple of small nails into the bottom since they already have the holes. And then I can just hook it up to a standard barrel jack from Limax. And what I was talking about is liquid electrical tape to cover up the back side of this. So, let's see, liquid tape. It's thick and black and has a very distinctive smell. It kind of smells like rubber contact cement. So because these are the hot pins on the back, which if I could hold it, it'd be great. I'm going to just coat this with some liquid electrical tape, which apparently my tape is getting dried. The negatives I'm not too worried about, like I was saying, because they're not hot. And I'm going to put a little bit in here on the front side. Look at the liquid electrical tape you can get from a lot of places. You can order it on Amazon, eBay. I just got mine from the auto parts store, since people use it on cars, and so do I. If I have a place where I can't get into, or I just need a quick patch, that needs to last longer than actual electrical tape, I'll put on some liquid electrical tape. And this stuff is about at the end of its lifespan. So let the liquid electrical tape dry before you manhandle it, because it stains your fingers and it doesn't smell the greatest. And it takes about 4 hours for complete drying time. So I'm just going to let it sit like this. I'll probably actually put this over in the helping hands clamp, hold it up while I put a dab of hot glue on the bottom of all the bases. So you can get helping hands, which here's my parts one. I gotta find my real one, but they're the little clamps that like that. Or you can use a jeweler's vise. Those are really inexpensive and they're not very big. They're maybe 3 or 4 inches. But I'm just going to set this aside. Once I find my other helping hands that actually have the claws, and glue and everything in, and it'll be good to go. So, but that's what it looks like. Relatively quick project. Depending on your definition of quick, some people might find the hooking them all up tedious. It took me about an hour, but I wasn't rushing it. I was just doing it and listening to music and videos and stuff while doing it. Just something to do while the storm was raging. And it was something I could quit doing if we lost power. And I wouldn't be affected by it. So, but it's a nice little project. That way you can recycle other things that aren't Lemax into your Lemax or Department 56 or Mr. Christmas, Hawthorne Village, etc. towns. Or if you just want to do this just to have for a dollhouse. You can do something like this. If you find a set of Christmas lights or other lights that are similar, you can retrofit a lot of stuff. It just takes time and some know-how. That's why we're here showing you how to do it, so you get a basic idea. That one came out. Push that back down. There you go. So now I have 120 volt Christmas lanterns that now run at on a 4.5 volt power supply at 1/8 of an amp, basically. That one's going to have to be glued. It's got a crack. And now I have something that a lot of other people don't have in their town. Make mine stand out a little. I'm going to have to adjust this socket apparently, because it doesn't want to stay in its hole. So there we go. 10 incandescent Christmas lights. They run 120 volts, converted down to less than 3 volts for a Halloween town, Christmas town, dollhouse, etc. You can use this principle on other things. Hopefully you like it. Hopefully it helps in the future if you're trying to do any modifications of something. And I'm sure I'll have more videos like this.